Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. This is what everybody's been waiting for. We're spraying lacquer on the giveaway guitar today. I can't wait. So stick around and let me show you my process for putting lacquer on my guitars. All right, it's just about time to spray, but I almost forgot one really important thing, and that's to round over the sound hole. I don't want to have this big square, blocky, ugly looking sound hole, so it's time to round it over. The style of sound hole bracing that I use is different than anybody I think that I've ever seen. What I do is I put 2 layers of spruce there. You have the top, and then I put another layer underneath it that's rotated 90 degrees. So now the fibers are going at a 90-degree angle to each other. That's just to promote strength around the sound hole. But it also makes it look really thick. So I need to put a 45-degree angle on that bottom layer, and you can kind of, if you look close, you can see a glue line between the two. So I just work myself up to that glue line and I stop there. That way my tops don't look unusually thick or like they're laminated. Once I have the 45 put on, top and bottom, then I can just go ahead and sand it to a nice smooth finish, and usually I work my way up to about a 400 grit sandpaper. There's a lot going on in the shop here today. I've got laminated top getting glued up. Got some sides here that we just finished gluing up. Got the neck block in, or the block in for a 335 style guitar here. Just glued that in this afternoon. And got a set of sides that are just getting glued as well. And to top that off, I'm still waiting for the CNC to finish. I can't exactly spray the guitar while the CNC is running. This is not a selfie. I'm trying to hold this on a tripod and the camera keeps spinning around from the weight. I want to spray the guitar, but I can't do it while the CNC is running. There's just too much dust in the air. So, what are you going to do? Well, if we're going to spray lacquer, we need to mix some lacquer up first. So I'm going to show you how I do that. Now, it's going to vary depending on the brand that you use and the weather conditions in the area that you're at when you're spraying. The hotter it is, the quicker the lacquer is going to want to dry. So, in order to slow that down, you get yourself some lacquer retarder, and that'll slow it down so it won't cure so fast. Now, on the other hand, if you are in a real cold weather situation, like say you live in some crazy place like Canada, then you might need to add some lacquer thinner to speed up the curing process or the drying process. So it really depends on where you're at as far as what you're going to add. But generally what I do is I put in about a 50-50 mix of lacquer and then one of these two things. So, since it's 95 degrees out here right now, I'm going to use retarder. And the brand I'm using right now is Sherwood Pro. It's from Sherwin-Williams. I've tried several different kinds. I've tried Deft, D-E-F-T. You can get it at Home Depot or Lowe's usually. It works good, but it feels very much like plastic. And this has a harder finish. It's more like touching glass than touching plastic, if that makes any sense to you at all. So that's why I prefer that, just because of the feel, not so much that it does a better job. All right, that's right on a 50-50 mix. Now, if it's not 95 degrees, say it's 85 degrees, you may not have to go 50-50. So you'll just have to play around with this if you get doing it. So I'm just going to stir it up a little bit. Not much. That's good. Then I'm going to do the rest by pouring it back and forth. So I've got a there's a screen on this. This is supposed to collect all the dust and things like that. So I'd like to do the rest of my mixing, pouring it back and forth from one container to the next, straining out any kind of dust or hairs or fibers or anything that might be floating around. Smells a bit strong. It's kind of almost has a bubble gum kind of smell. So it actually is kind of pleasant, but it is also strong. All right, that's our last one. So now we'll just get this in the gun and start spraying. Let's talk a little bit about the equipment that you're going to need to spray. Now, you don't have to spend a ton of money on spray equipment. The gun that I'm using right here is actually a $10 gun from Harbor Freight. It may be 20 bucks, but it's a cheap one. I don't spend much on the guns. The reason being, the work that you do after you spray is far more important than the quality of the spray. Now, sure, you could spend $500-600 on a gun, and it'll save you a little bit of time in the wet sanding and all that kind of stuff afterwards. But you really don't need to. I've told my students for years that I think you can get just as good of a finish if you used a paintbrush or sealed it off and dipped it into a container full of lacquer, like in a trash can or something like that. I think you could get just as good of a finish that way as you could with a really good spray gun, because it's what you do after. It's the wet sanding that's really important. It's not the spray. Now you can see I put a balloon in the sound hole, and that's just to keep the lacquer from going inside the guitar when I'm spraying. Now let's talk about air compressors. You don't have to have a huge 80-gallon tank like the one I have in my shop. Actually, for years, I used one of these DeWalt air compressors that only had I think it's a 4.5-gallon tank. It may be 6. It's not very big anyways. But when you're spraying a guitar, you're not spending a lot of time shooting the air out, especially if you use a high-volume, low-pressure gun like I'm using here. In that case, you can get away with a smaller compressor because you're just spraying short bursts at a time. If you get into bigger jobs like painting a car or truck or something, then you're going to want a bigger tank. But for most hobby level guys, a little pancake compressor would probably work, but if you can get something slightly bigger than a pancake compressor, you'd be better off. Spraying with a gun is really not much different than spraying with a spray can or spray paint. You need to stay about 8 to 10 inches away from the surface with the gun, just so the spray can spread out. You don't want to have a big glob where you're going to create a run. So if you stay 8 to 10 inches away, you'll be fine. Now, the only other thing that you really need to watch for is where you start and stop your spray and how much you overlap your spray. If you pay attention to how I do the top and the back, I overlap my spray about 50%. So I'll go across, then I'll lift it up to where the cone of the spray overlap, so that what I just sprayed gets partially covered by the next spray, and so on. This same technique applies whether you're using a spray can to spray or a spray gun. You always want to overlap your spray by about 50%. That'll give you the most even coverage in the end. All right, check it out. We have lacquer. Now, I'm not finished yet. I was starting to get some bugs. Where are they? Can you see that one there? That one there? They're starting to fly around. There's another one there. Landing in the lacquer, so I'm going to have to pick those out and respray. I probably needs another coat or two anyways. But for now, we've got ourselves a guitar with lacquer. It's all shiny down here. It's a little bit hazy up there. Not quite enough lacquer up there. So that's going to need a bit more. And the sides, they look like they're a little bit light as well. So what I'm looking for, hopefully this will work. But what I'm looking for is not this, but this. That's shiny, That's not quite so shiny. That's shiny, not quite so shiny. I hope you see that. Hope the camera picks that up. So anyways, that's cool. Thanks for stopping by and watching the video today. If you haven't entered to win that giveaway guitar yet, this giveaway guitar yet, then make sure you subscribe here. Go to my website, SpencerAcoustics.com, and fill out that little 2-line form that pops up. And just like that, you're entered to win, or possibly win, the Baby Alien giveaway guitar. Have a good weekend.